Hello friends, welcome to the HFY Ode, where we bring you new science fiction stories, a new world, a new adventure. And yes, there is no robotic or AI voices here, only real human voices with real human touch. So let's start this journey, and please subscribe my channel if you like the stories and press the bell icon for the latest updates. Let's have a story. Okay.
There's a particular sound a fight makes when it has already been decided before the first swing lands. I know this sound. I've cataloged it in 17 years of Academy security rotations, in 4 different postings across 3 star systems. The posturing, the crowd pulling back like water from stone, the way silence thickens into something almost solid. I heard that sound from 40 meters away, through a closed corridor door, while I was arguing with the commissary unit about the temperature of my morning brew. By the time I reached the training yard, I was already too late. What I walked into was not what I expected. That part, I'm still not sure how to log. The morning had been unremarkable up until the moment it wasn't. Cadet Drill 7 was the first rotation of the second try cycle, which meant the training yard would be full of first years still figuring out how their bodies worked in low-pressure atmosphere. And I would be standing in my station by the East Colonnade, watching them fail, drinking something the commissary unit insists is a nutrient blend but which tastes specifically of regret and industrial solvent. I do this every morning. I have done this every morning for 4 years. I have put in 3 separate maintenance requests about the drink dispenser. The requests are, as far as I can tell, being used as insulation somewhere. I was mid-sip when Cadet Vorith walked onto the yard. I should describe Vorith. Officially, for the log. Vorith Ashcallan, 3rd year, Drathian, top physical scoring in his cohort for 2 consecutive cycles. Broad through the chest in the way that Drathian males get when they've been lifting in high-grav chambers. He had the kind of neck that made other cadets decide not to finish their sentences. His disciplinary record was not clean. 2 formal complaints, both quietly buried before they reached my desk, which told me everything I needed to know about who filed them and who reviewed them. He walked onto the yard with his training circle behind him. 5 of them, fanned out in the casual, unconvincing way that means it was choreographed. I noticed the formation. I noted it. I then looked at the commissary unit and made a 7th mental note about the temperature of my drink. The human girl was already there. Cadet Yara Vasquez, 1st year, Terra Origin, mid-tier physical scores, exceptional in tactical theory and materials engineering electives. I had reviewed her intake file twice because her secondary language notation listed something called Construction Spanish as a distinct entry from Standard Spanish, and I had no idea what that meant and had been meaning to ask someone. She was seated cross-legged on the yard mat, not stretching, just sitting. Her eyes were closed. She had headphones in, which were technically not regulation, but were also not technically prohibited, a loophole she had clearly already found and quietly settled into. She was not small, but she was 1, and they were 6. The geometry of the situation was very straightforward. Vorith stopped in front of her. She didn't open her eyes. This was, I would later understand, not ignorance. This was information. He said something. I was still 40 meters away at the colonnade, close enough to see the shape of the interaction, too far to catch the words. His posture said acknowledge me. His circle fanned wider in that unhurried way that means we have time, we have numbers, we have already decided how this goes. She opened one eye, closed it again. That's when I put down my drink. Not because I thought she was in danger, because I recognized the particular quality of stillness she was sitting in, and it reminded me of something I could not immediately name, and the not naming of it made my left secondary arm start doing the fidget thing where I tap my own wrist without realizing. My commanding officer in my last posting called it my tell. She meant it unkindly. She was not wrong. Vorith crouched down, right in front of her. Close. She opened both eyes, pulled one headphone out, let dangle. I started walking, not running. Academy instructors do not run toward situations unless the situation requires it. Running signals loss of control. Loss of control signals to the crowd that there is something worth watching. And the worst thing you can do in a yard confrontation is give it an audience that believes it has your endorsement. I was doing the fast version of not running. Vorith was speaking now. Low, deliberate. The words were meant to carry to his circle, not to her. That's how you know when it's performance. When a speaker is angled 15 degrees away from the person they're supposedly talking to. He was building something. A moment. A version of events he wanted his circle to carry back. She listened to all of it. Then, she said something. I was still 10 meters away. I caught the tail end. For words, maybe 5, in a language that was not standard. Not even the formal Terran dialect that shows up in Academy documentation. Something lower, quicker, with a consonant cluster at the end that sounded like gravel shifting. Vorith's circle reacted. A ripple of something, not offense, more like recalibration. Vorith himself went still in a way I had not seen him go still before. I reached the edge of the mat. Cadet Ashcallan. My voice landed flat and official. You have disciplined circuit in 20 minutes. You should be at the east track. He turned to look at me. His expression was the one that cadets deploy when they want you to understand they are tolerating you. I have seen on 6 species. It is always the same face. We were just talking, he said. Standard. Perfectly polite. Perfectly false. Good, I said. Talking is done. East track. He held the look for 2 seconds longer than he needed to. Long enough to tell me and his circle and anyone watching that the ending was his choice. Then he turned, and the formation moved with him, and they walked off the yard in the coordinated way of people who had practiced the walking away as much as the approaching. I looked at Vasquez. She had put both headphones back in. Cadet. I said it twice before she registered. She pulled one out, looked up at me. Her expression was not rattled. It was not relieved. It was something I found harder to classify, a very particular brand of tired that doesn't come from sleep deprivation. You okay? I asked, which was not regulation language. Regulation language is, do you wish to file an incident report? I'd said the wrong thing. She considered my face for a moment. He called me a settler caste with a charity slot, she said, in Drathian low form. He thought I didn't know it. I did not ask if she knew it. She put her headphone back in. I stood there with my hands doing the wrist tap thing and thought about the 4 words she had said to him at the end, the ones that made his whole circle flinch. I really needed to find someone who could translate construction Spanish. The incident did not end in the yard. I should have known it wouldn't. I logged it anyway. Potential hostile contact, unresolved, no physical exchange, and submitted it to the duty roster, where it would be reviewed by Subcommander Elt, who would read it in 2 days, flag it as low priority, and file it next to my drink temperature requests. The Academy has systems. The systems have a speed. These 2 facts do not always cooperate. What I did not anticipate was the second half of the day. Vorith's approach had been witnessed by approximately 20 cadets. I know this because after I walked Vasquez to her next block rotation, I spent 40 minutes reviewing yard sensor footage and counting heads. 20 witnesses, which meant 20 different versions of what happened, which meant by the dinner rotation the story had split into at least 3 distinct narratives, none of which agreed on who had been standing and who had been sitting and what language anything had been said in. Cadets are extraordinary rumor infrastructure. I mean that in the precise mechanical sense. The version that concerned me was the one in which Vasquez had backed down. This version was popular in Vorith's circle and spreading toward the Drathian third-year cohort with the quiet efficiency of a gas leak. I heard it secondhand from a Vekari cadet named Paz, who came to me under the cover of asking about locker assignment swaps, which I appreciated as cover stories go. She just sat there, Paz said, doing the thing where you stare at a point on the wall and pretend you're thinking about something else entirely. That's what they're saying, that she just sat there and didn't respond. I said, making a note. Vorith's saying she froze. Is that what he's saying? Paz left. I drank the temperature-incorrect brew and thought about the 4 words. The practical exams ran the next morning. Inter-cohort obstacle circuit. Mixed groups assigned randomly. 40-minute run with 3 combat simulation checkpoints. The pairing algorithm does not care about social dynamics. The pairing algorithm cares about distributing physical scoring tiers evenly across teams. The algorithm put Vasquez and Vorith on the same team. I found this out when I pulled the team manifests at 0600. I stared at the pairing for a full 30 seconds. My left secondary arm did the wrist thing so hard I knocked over the brew. I could have intervened. Reassigned. The subcommander has override authority on team composition for documented welfare concerns. My incident report was not yet reviewed. I went to the circuit starting position and stood there doing the fast version of not running inside my own mind. The circuit starts with a compression tunnel, 300 meters of reduced ceiling crawl space designed to neutralize height advantage and force cadets into a collective rhythm. Drathians hate it. Their upper shoulder musculature is wrong for the angle, and they know it, and they know everyone knows it, which makes them aggressive before they enter and aggravated when they exit. Vorith's team, Vasquez's team, I kept correcting myself, I don't know why, entered the tunnel in a rough order that I could see shaking itself in a hierarchy in real time. Vorith at the back, which was not modest positioning. He was calibrating the pace, setting the tempo of the whole team's crawl by controlling the pressure from behind. I had watched him do it in previous circuits. It was effective and borderline. Vasquez entered third. The tunnel sensors log time splits. I was watching the monitor board at the far end. 42 seconds in, team pace dropped. This happens at the first low point, a section of the tunnel that dips further, requiring a full prone crawl for anyone over standard Terran height. Drathians hit it and slow down. They always slow down. The team's pace display went amber. Then it went green, faster than entry pace, which is unusual, which has in my 4 years monitoring the circuit happened exactly twice before, and both times I later found that someone at the front of the team had changed their crawl technique and the others had followed by instinct. I pulled up the tunnel camera feed. Vasquez was at the front. She had flattened, not the standard academy prone position, which is symmetrical and optimized for average frame, but something sideways, one shoulder dropped, leading with her left hip in a way that looked improvised and wrong, and was clearly neither of those things. She was pulling through the low point faster than the gap should have allowed. And here was the part one watched 3 times on the replay. Every cadet behind her had shifted unconsciously to mirror her angle within 4 body lengths, including Vorith. Vorith Ashcalon, top physical scorer, competitive about breathing, was crawling through a bottleneck in a technique he had just learned from watching the back half of a human girl he had spent yesterday trying to make feel small. The team hit the tunnel exit 11 seconds ahead of the session median. I found out later, from Paz, who found things out, that in the tunnel, somewhere around the 40-second mark, Vorith had told Vasquez to move aside, let someone stronger take the lead position. She had said something. Paz didn't know what. Whatever it was, Vorith had not moved her. At checkpoint 2, the simulation has a load-bearing obstruction that requires coordination. 3 cadets must sustain pressure on a weight panel while a 4th navigates the bypass. The team's natural move is to put the biggest bodies on the panel and the smallest on the bypass. This is obvious. This is also, as it turns out, wrong at this particular checkpoint because the bypass navigation requires a very specific series of grip positions that don't work for wide hand spans. I know this. The cadets typically find it out the hard way. Vasquez walked to the weight panel. I'll anchor, she said. Paz, who had been assigned to this team for the circuit and was therefore an eyewitness, which was information they delivered to me over dinner with the barely suppressed energy of someone who had been holding it in for hours, said that Vorith had looked at her like she'd said something in a language he didn't have. She had already braced. Bypass needs 3-finger grip, she said, to no one in particular and everyone exactly. Wide hands won't seat. She had pointed at one of Vorith's circle, a Drathian named Orcs who was narrower in the palm. You and him. Pass on assist. Paz told me this, and then said, very carefully, she knew his hand measurements. I asked how. She said she'd noticed during the tunnel. I drank the terrible brew and thought about that. 42 seconds in a crawl tunnel. Lateral assessment of every hand span in her team. Stored. Deployed 11 minutes later at a pressure point. The obstruction cleared in personal best time for 2 of the cadets involved. Vorith did not speak to her after the circuit. Not the dismissive silence of someone who has decided she doesn't exist. The specific silence of someone rearranging a room inside their head and not done yet. I logged the day's events under a new report. Incident follow-up, continued observation required. I added a note at the bottom. Recommend extended monitoring. Not for welfare concern. Reason, TBD. I saved it. Stared at it. Added one more line. Human cadet demonstrates consistent situational intelligence under adversarial conditions. This is not remarkable by Academy standards. I deleted that last sentence 3 times. Rewrote it the same way each time. Left it in. The fight, the real one, the one this report is officially about, happened 11 days after the yard. I want to be precise about this because the official timeline matters, and because I have submitted this incident report 4 times and had it returned for insufficient contextual framing each time, which I believe is administrative language, for we don't want to log what this actually shows, and I'm going to keep resubmitting it until someone at the subcommand level runs out of places to put it. 11 days. In those 11 days, the version of events in which Vasquez had frozen in the yard had mostly died. Not because anyone corrected it, because the circuit happened, and the circuit had 22 witnesses, and the thing about cadets as rumor infrastructure is that they are also very good at updating the data. By day 6, the Drathian third-year cohort had quietly shifted from she froze to she didn't engage, which is meaningfully different, and they knew it, and she didn't acknowledge it either way, which I found either admirable or aggravating, depending on the time of day. Vorith's behavior during this period was what I would log as watchful. Not hostile, not conciliatory, watchful. The kind of watchful that means you have been surprised and you are still processing what the surprise means about you. I understand that feeling. I have been experiencing a version of it for 11 days. The fight did not begin as a fight. It began as a disagreement in the materials lab over access priority to the high-temperature forge units, which are available by sign-up and which Vasquez had signed up for the 1400 block 3 days in advance. Vorith arrived at 1,355 with 2 members of his circle and the casual certainty of someone who has never had to sign up for anything. The lab tech on duty, a third year named Quiz who I would describe as conflict-averse to the point of structural failure, stepped back from the situation before it started. I was not there. I was at the East Colonnade, having a documented dispute with the commissary unit. The lab is the other side of the academy from the East Colonnade. My response time, logged and time-stamped, was 6 minutes and 40 seconds from the alert. The alert, notably, did not come from Quiz. What I know about those 6 minutes and 40 seconds comes from 3 cadet witnesses, 2 lab sensor logs, 1 equipment usage record, and Paz, who was not present but somehow knows everything anyway, and I have stopped questioning this. Vorith had told her to log off the unit and come back tomorrow. She had not done this. He had escalated through the standard hierarchy of social pressure. Done. Proximity. The arrival of his circle at angles that made the space feel smaller. This is a known tactic, documented in 6 Academy behavioral reviews, prosecuted in none of them. She had not moved. Here is where the lab sensor log becomes interesting. At the 14:02 mark, 7 minutes into the standoff, Vasquez picked up a forge calibration tool from the workbench. Not a weapon. The tool is about 30 centimeters, dense polymer grip, ceramic tip, weighs roughly 0.4 standard kilos. She picked it up and began calibrating the forge unit she had signed out, which is exactly what it is for. She had her back to all 3 of them. Vorith, according to witness testimony, said, "I'm talking to you." She ran the calibration sequence. It takes about 40 seconds. The machine makes a low cycling sound during this process. She ran it twice. "I'm talking to you," Vorith said again, and this time he moved. Not toward her. Not yet. He moved to the unit's access panel on the side and powered it down. She stopped, tool in hand, looked at the dark panel, turned around. I want to be careful about how I describe the next portion because I have only 1 angle of sensor footage and 2 eyewitness accounts, and the eyewitnesses agree on the facts but disagree on the emotional content in ways I find significant. Witness 1, She looked afraid. Then she didn't. Witness 2. She didn't look afraid. She looked like she was deciding something. Both of them agree, she said, before Vorith could say anything else. That's a 500 credit equipment reset. You just signed your name to it. Vorith said she was wrong. She read him the serial number on the panel, the Academy equipment code, the maintenance surcharge schedule, from memory, in the same flat tone you use when you read coordinates. His circle was very quiet. Sign your name, she said. Or turn it back on. He turned it back on. I have gone back to this moment many times in my log. I'm not sure why it stays with me the way it does. It was not the most dramatic moment of the 11 days. It was not even the most dramatic moment of that afternoon. Within 90 seconds, Vorith had shoved the calibration tool from her hand, and we had moved into reportable physical territory, and I was 6 minutes and 30 seconds away, and the alert had finally been sent. But that moment, sign your name or turn it back on. No threat underneath it. No performance. The threat was the procedural truth. And the procedural truth was a weapon she had prepared in advance by knowing the surcharge schedule. And the surcharge schedule is not something most first years bother to learn because most first years do not anticipate needing it. She had anticipated needing it. I don't know when she decided to learn it. I don't know if she was planning for Vorith specifically or just for a shape of situation that she recognized from somewhere I don't have file access to. I haven't asked. It's not a question that fits in a disciplinary report. When I reached the lab, it was over. Vorith was standing. His circle was spread out in that same fan-back formation as the yard, except the geometry of it was different, less predatory, more uncertain. Vasquez was picking the calibration tool up from the floor, checking the ceramic tip for damage the way you check something that belongs to you. No one was bleeding. No one was unconscious. Vorith had a mark on his jaw, which the medical report describes as consistent with contact from a polymer grip. The medical report does not explain how this contact occurred at the specific angle in question, given their height differential and the positioning logged by the sensor. I have my own theory about this. I have not put it in the report. Instructor Vasquez said when she saw me in the doorway. Cadet Vasquez. She handed me the calibration tool. I'd like to file an equipment interference report. Not an assault report. Equipment interference, which, as it turns out, is reviewed by a different subcommand channel than physical altercations, processed by a different officer, and flagged for a different tier of response. Equipment interference in an active sign-out period carries mandatory review and, under Section 7.4 of Academy Operational Code, a formal record notation for the cadet responsible. I found this out when I looked it up afterward. She had known it before she walked into the lab. I filed her report. I filed the physical incident report for the altercation. I filed my own incident report for the delayed response. I sat in my office at 2100 with a drink that tasted like solvent and a page open in my log that I had been staring at for 40 minutes. Eventually, I wrote, Cadet Vasquez shows consistent pattern of preparation for adversarial conditions using procedural and informational tools available to all cadets. Adversarial party appears not to have expected this. I'm not certain why. I stared at the last sentence. Left it. Vorith's formal record notation was processed 6 days later. His 2 buried complaints from previous cycles were cross-referenced under the new filing and unburied. Both of the cadets who had originally filed them were still enrolled. I have not spoken to Vasquez since I handed back her equipment interference confirmation slip. She said thank you, tucked it into her jacket. I noticed, as she was leaving, that she had signed up for the next 3 forge blocks in advance as well. All 1,400 slots. I logged this under nothing. It doesn't need a category. Some things you just watch.